Faiz bin Muhammad Hafiz, and my group members are Brother Haikal Hakimi, Brother Amirul Izzat, and Brother Hafizuddin. Will be talking about prison department. Without further ado, let's get started.
To start off, a prison is unlike any other institution or organization that exists in modern society. The difference are not merely physical, it is a place where a group of individuals are trained to manage and take charge of a group of individuals who are called prisoners. The prisoners have to live in accordance with the regulation, enforced, and their every movement is strictly controlled. The prison department is the final institution in the implementation of the country's criminal justice system, and it is accountable to the Ministry of Internal Security. So, the history of this prison department in Malaysia is during British rule until the arrival of the Japanese. Places where sentences were carried out where the responsibility of the state governments in accordance with their respective regulation. The Strait Settlement were the earliest state to develop their prisons, whereas the Malay state began to develop their prison only after the British had established an administration that would be responsible for the same. So the first prison in Malaysia is the Taiping prison, better known as the Taiping Go. The largest prison in the Malay states at the time was established in 1879 during the Japanese occupation from 1941 to 1945. Prisons were used for the detention of civilian prisoners as well as prisoners of war of the Japanese army. So after the Second World War, the prison headquarters was established to administer all the prison in Malaya. In 1952, the Prison Act was enacted, followed by the Federal Prison Regulation in 1953, which was based on the concept of modern treatment. In the same year, the Criminal Justice Bill was passed, wherein the instrument of torture, the cat of nine tails, was abolished, and the term prisons replaced the old phrase of penal servitude. So back in 1957, when the Federation of Malaya gained its independence, the first commissioner of prison was appointed to administer all the prison in the federation. With the formation of Malaysia in 1963, the prison department undertook the management of prison in Peninsula Malaysia as well as Sabah and Sarawak. The Prison Act 1995 was enacted on 2 November 1995 to replace the old Prison Act. So the Prison Regulation 2000 came into effect on 1 September 2000 to replace the previous regulation. The previous Act and regulation had long been in use and was appropriate that changes and reforms be carried out based on the current needs and changes in order to streamline the management and administrative machinery of the prison institution.
So, for the organization structure, the hierarchy begins with General Commissioner Datuk Haji Nordin and continues through Deputy Commissioner Datuk Haji Abdul Aziz and Abdul Qadir for the organization structure. The prison is subsequently supervised by a director assigned to each state.
Hi, my name is Muhammad Hakimi bin Hizam, and I will continue to talk about the functions and operation of prison department. The purpose and objective are to enlighten the role of Malaysians prison as a main correctional body in the criminal justice system. Generally, the objectives and functions of the Malaysian Prisons Department are to protect the public by segregating the offenders from the community as ordered by the courts. Secondly, to effectuate judicial decisions by holding prisoners in custody until their actual times of release. Thirdly, it is to provide a secure, orderly, and human treatment environment for offenders in department custody. And last but not least, to rehabilitate offenders so that they may regain their self-respect and self-identity and thus eventually return to their community as law-abiding and socially productive citizens. In order to ensure these objectives and functions being successfully achieved, various steps have been taken by the institutions. In other words, this is where the prison departments plays their role. The main principles in treatment of the prisoners are as follows. First, discipline and order shall be maintained with fairness but firmness, and with no more restriction than is required for safe custody and to ensure a well-ordered community life. Other than that, control of prisoners. Prisons officers should seek to influence them through their own example and leadership so as to enlist their willing cooperations. And at all times the treatment of convicted prisoners shall be such as to encourage their self-respect and a sense of personal responsibility so as to rebuild their morale, to inculcate in them habits of good citizenship and hard work, and to encourage them to lead good and useful life on discharge, and to fit them to do so.
So, when we talk about prisons, we as a society has a bad view and stereotype that prison is a place where individuals who commit offense are imprisoned, such as stealing and murder. However, there are several important positions and individuals related to the rule of law exist in the Malaysian Prisons Department to ensure that the law can be upheld and offenders can be punished to ensure the peace of life of community institution. So the first legal personnel in the prison department is Departmental Legal Advisor. So the main purpose of this position is to give legal advice and views to the prisons department, whether in writing or orally. So legally advice given is to make sure the best decision will be made in settling problems. So another legal personnel in the prison department is the Superintendent of Prison and Federal Council. So basically their responsibilities are to formulate or amend primary legislation, including regulations on behalf of the prisons department. Besides, they are also responsible to vet all agreements and other documents having legal effect prior to execution by the prisons department. Secondly, the Superintendent of Prison is responsible to act as an intermediary for the prisons department in civil cases under the jurisdiction and control of the Departmental Legal Advisor. Last but not least, the Federal Council is responsible to prepare affidavits in reply in cases involving the prisons department.
In this video, I will present 3 cases which have been dealt by the prison department. Number 1 is Dion Jacobus Alfred Cornelius, 27, was found guilty and sentenced to the death penalty. The accused, a South African national, was charged for an offence of trafficking in dangerous drugs under Section 39B of a Dangerous Drug Act 1952 and punishable under the Section 39B of the same Act. On 4 October 2013, around 3:05 p.m., the appellant and all the exhibits were handed to the investigation officer after a police report was lodged by SP6 in Bayan Lepas International Airport, Penang. 1,949 grams of methamphetamine found at the wall of a black laptop bag which contained no laptop in it. The appellant were arrested in Penang prison while waiting for the court hearing. According to the appellant's defense in High Court, he had no knowledge of the drugs hidden in the said laptop bag. The bag belongs to the appellant's friend Tony, and the appellant was an innocent carrier. Appellant also gave reason Tony had called him, but the officers refused to allow the appellant to answer the call, and one of the custom officers read the message in a phone, which stated, "John, answer the phone, it's Tony calling." However, the reasons given are not strong and reasonable. He still found guilty and the punishment must be executed. The appellant sentenced to the death by Pulau Pinang High Court. In total, the appellant has been in prison for 8 years since the day he was arrested. Case number 2, Maintain anak lelaki Arumugam, 50, has been in prison for 16 years from the day he was arrested. The appellant, together with 3 other individuals, were convicted by the Shah Alam High Court for the offence of murder of Manibanan Velasani, 27, in 9 August 2004 in Pandan Jaya, Selangor, Darul Ehsan. At the Court of Appeal, the appeal was dismissed. Maintain and 3 other individuals will file a further appeal in Federal Court in 2005. The Federal Court agreed that the conviction against the 3 other appellants were unsafe and they were acquitted. The only person who was unable to get his acquittal was Maintain. Amir Hamzah, Maintain's lawyer, said in the charge sheet the victim has an Indian passport, so it's obvious that he is an Indian national. In 2018, Amir filed a second review based on the new appearance of a new witness. The witness name is Devadas. During the trial, Maintain maintained the person who was subjected to the beating was Devadas, and there were no other individuals by the name of Manivanan. Devadas just disappeared until they finally meet him in 2017. Devadas willing to affirm a statutory declaration to confirm what happens at that night of the incident. Devadas said Maintain assumed that Devadas stole something from Maintain's bike workshop. So, Maintain with 3 others started to beat him until he passed out. According to Devadas' declaration, he was the only one who was beaten up, and he was the one who was present at the scene of the crime. There were no other individuals named Manibanan, the name that appeared in the charge sheet. Based on the declaration, Amir Hamzah decided to proceed with the second review application, but the second review application was also dismissed by the Federal Court. Because the evidence obtained is dubious, Maintain's cases are still pending until now. The last case is Piri Mailesi, 41, a Zambia national, was charged for an offence of trafficking in dangerous drugs under Section 39B of Dangerous Drug Act 1952 and punishable under Section 39B of the same Act. On 8 December 7:30 p.m., she was arrested in Bayan Lepas International Airport by police. Inspection result found 722.2 grams of methamphetamine in the bag, which was locked with a padlock. Piri Mailesi came to Penang from Mozambique via Johannesburg to Hong Kong to Penang to visit her boyfriend, Mike, who is a student in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. According to the appellant, she got the bag which contained drugs from George, Mike's brother, who sent her to use the new bag with padlock because the bag belongs to her, is too old and a bit torn. While looking on the appellant medical history, she was diagnosed with HIV positive around 2005. She has been on medication for about 16 years now. When she was detained in Penang, she was taken to Suruhanjaya Hospital for HIV checkups once or twice a month. Although she was prescribed with HIV medication, she never received the medication from the prison authorities until 5 months into her detention. After being detained in Penang for 11 months, she was transferred to Kajang Women's Prison. She was not taken for any HIV checkups for the first 3 years, except for once in the first few months. She was transferred to Kajang Prison in early 2012.
The appellant was arrested by Prison Department Suruhanjaya since date of arrest until August 2011, and she was transferred to Kajang Women's Prison since her conviction by the High Court Pulau Pinang in 8 November 2011 until present. In total, Purely Malaysia has been in prison for 11 years. However, the appellant sentenced to death by Pulau Pinang High Court.